Chapter 9 World of Forgotten. Stretching his arms and tail, Dragonic grins energetically for today's adventure. He eyes Natsumi and Yusuke already ready for the day as he proudly tells them. Welcome to. Dragonic groans in a crouching pose, revealing to them. This is the world of Den-O. Also this is the AR. World of Den-O. So imagines doing no good in time traveling. Tsukasa announces. He suddenly cuts off, eyeing the drop background to his dismay where they were, dropping his jaw, and he widens his eyes in terror. Oh god. Natsumi blinks with Yusuke asking, puzzled. What? Walking up in the room, wearing a detective-like Sherlock Holmes outfit with a briefcase and a pocket watch strapped on it. Technically, Dragonic utters out loudly as he explains that the world of Den-O has no such thing as an AR. Rider of Den-O, since the original rider of Den-O is a singularity point, meaning he would be the AR version too. Tsukasa hums but shrugs it off as that is not his problem. His true goal is fixing the problem of this world. Yusuke notices the outfit and asks him, puzzled. Detective Sherlock Holmes much? Natsumi says, giggling. Yusuke staggers, still not sure what that is. Tsukasa checks his pockets and feels something. He pulls it out and it is a strange ticket-like card pass. Natsumi notices it, uttering, a card. Dragonic looks at it and says in amazement. Oh hey, a rider pass. Tsukasa looks at it, figuring as much as he explains. This is the ticket for the train that travels through time, Den Liner. Natsumi and Yusuke eye each other as did Absol clueless. Tsukasa begins sliding the card into the card holder with Dragonic teasing with a grin. Must be yours. Tsukasa isn't so sure, but why does he have it? And it was inside the outfit, so there must be some connection to that. A train that travels through time. Natsumi mutters in awe that such a thing exists, with Yusuke uttering out loudly. A time machine. Tsukasa makes a disgusting look at how stupid but correct that he put it, but it still annoys him. How do we board something like that? Natsumi then asks, with Tsukasa not sure. No clue, Natsumi-can. Tsukasa walks out from the studio going to see where his key will lead him. I don't know that part. For now, when you think about trains, stations come in mind. He announces, knowing the road will lead him as a conductor walks past him. Just then a yellow orb suddenly appears over the sky and flies right into Tsukasa's back. Before anyone knows what happened, Tsukasa gasps as he suddenly drops the briefcase as sand leaks out from underneath his pants legs. Natsumi and Yusuke notice this, and then she sees sand. She gasps, asking him worried, hey, Tsukasa-kun, what's with all that sand? Tsukasa did not respond. Natsumi eyes him worryingly as she approaches him and taps on his shoulder. At that moment, Tsukasa pulls the detective hat off, revealing a single strain of hair turned red. Move it, kid. Tsukasa's body, but with a more dramatic voice, speaks through as he brushes Natsumi back. She is startled to see. His eyes are glowing red, as well as wearing a red scarf now. He gazes at a conductor just passing by and assaults him, demanding angrily. Get out. I know you're in there, asshole. Natsumi is left speechless as this was not Tsukasa. Yusuke tries stopping him, but Tsukasa pushes him aside, still demanding the conductor to reveal himself. Just then the same man starts laughing, smirking as he pushes Tsukasa aside as sand bursts out of his body, revealing a mole-like imagined monster with a saw-like weapon. Just what I thought. You seemed like kind of a dunce. The not Tsukasa declares with a firm smirk. He suddenly wears the Den-O belt while holding the rider pass. Why does Tsukasa look so different? Natsumi questions his appearance. Absol starts sniffing the air towards him and immediately growls. Absol. Dragonic nods in agreement, telling Natsumi and Yusuke. Yup, that is not Tsukasa-kun. Natsumi blinks, not following. Let's go, Henshin. The not Tsukasa shouts, swiping the pass in the center of the belt as it glows. Red logo manifests through him with the belt announcing sword form. Everyone watches as he transforms into Kamen Rider Den-O, immediately posing as he announces in a crouching pose with his arms spread apart on both sides as he releases vapor of energy across his body. Or, Sanju. It is translated as, I have arrived. Natsumi drops her jaw slightly, with Yusuke also surprised. Den-O comes charging at the Imagine, fighting him aggressively with full power punches and kicks. The monster gasps in agony as Den-O summons its weapon and swings aggressively, multiple sparks flying out in pain. Well, this is interesting, Dragonic says, watching the beatdown. Natsumi still doesn't follow as she asks the dragon. What just happened, Dragonic? The purple dragon hums, thinking for a moment, and answers. Well, as an easy assumption, Tsukasa is possessed by an Imagine. Natsumi and Yusuke both lean their heads to the side, surprised. Dragonic nods explaining it. Yes, they can possess people but not all of them are evil. The one possessing Tsukasa is actually the other half of turning one into Den-O. Yusuke just utters surprised as Natsumi questions. So the one in Tsukasa-kun is a good guy? Yup, Dragonic replies with a grin. Natsumi still groans, not liking that Tsukasa is basically possessed. They look back at the fight and blink as the mole Imagine drills itself into the ground. Den-O chases after him at the hole but the monster has escaped. Oi, come back and fight, jerk. Is that the best you got, asshole? Den-O yells down at the hole at the cowardly monster while stomping his foot on the ground. No reply. He groans irritated as his transform gets undone and walks to hunt down the thing. However, Natsumi gets in his way. Tsukasa-kun, Natsumi asks, trying to reach out for her friend. But the one possessing him makes a puzzled, raised eyebrow expression, uttering out, "Huh, who the hell is that?" He walks past her but Natsumi once more gets in front of him. "Please give him back my friend's body," she asks the one controlling Tsukasa's body. He scoffs, annoyed, protesting. "And why the hell should I?" Seeing that this thing isn't going to leave Tsukasa's body, Natsumi decides to take action, lifting up her right thumb and immediately attacks him with the laughing pressure point across his neck. Gahaha. The Imagine possessing Tsukasa lets out a laugh so hard it literally sends him flying out of Tsukasa's body. The real Tsukasa laughs in his regular manner, still laughing. Ha ha ha, what was that for Natsumi-kun? Natsumi sighs with relief, he's back to normal. What the hell was that for? Bastard. The group startles, turning to see a reddish ghostly figure with the same voice that possessed Tsukasa. He possessed your body. Dragonic points out to Tsukasa, who adjusts his clothing and notices the red scarf. He comments, getting it. Well, that explains much. The spirit starts having a temper. Stomping his foot on the ground, liking that body. He yells at Tsukasa, "I need that body, bastard." He flies at Tsukasa, who reaches and grabs Yusuke by the shoulder. Nope. Tsukasa responds as he pulls Yusuke in front of him. Yusuke panics, yelling out, "Whoa, wait," but he gets cut off as the spirit of the Imagine enters his body. Sand pours down from underneath his pants as Yusuke gains the red hair strain sticking out. Natsumi sweat drops gazing at Tsukasa's decision, who smirks, dodging getting possessed again. Damn bastard, what was that? The Imagine possessing Yusuke demands. Coming at Tsukasa with a punch, who evades with ease. He growls, coming at him with a big swinging punch, but Tsukasa evades and dodges with the greatest of ease before grabbing his right arm and sweep. Kick him onto the ground. The possessed Yusuke gasps in agony on his knees and his arm twisted up so easily. Tsukasa scoffs, realizing this idiot fights like a brawler, no style in his movement or strategy. Oh well, he reaches and takes the rider pass, demanding, "You can have this back if you tell me what I want to know." Like I want it. The possessed Yusuke responds, not caring if he doesn't get it back as he can still fight. Tsukasa listens and actually believes him. He releases his grip as the Imagine gets up grunting. Tsukasa then tosses the rider pass to him, instead asking him with a smug smirk, "Then what do you want?" The Imagine blinks, thinking for a moment, and grins. Now wearing his casual clothes, Tsukasa with his arms crossed watches with Natsumi, Dragonic and Absol at the possessed Yusuke eating a large bowl of pudding with such satisfaction and delight. Pudding? Natsumi questions, really surprised, with Dragonic adding eating his own bowl of pudding but smaller. Guess even a monster enjoys sweet treats. Natsumi sweat drops heavily. Tsukasa watches the possessed Yusuke eating the pudding with a spoon, asking him, "You like the best?" He expresses dining in so happily. Tsukasa smirks as he grabs and slides the bowl to the Imagine's shock to the edge of the table. "Now talk or else I drop the bowl." Tsukasa threatens him as the Imagine actually freaks out, trying to reach the bowl, but Dragonic's tail slaps his hand, gasping him in pain. He groans, not having a choice but to tell them. Tsukasa smirks, sliding the bowl back to his possession. The Imagine begins to explain his situation as he was suddenly put here and can't remember much, if not anything. "You lost your physical form?" Tsukasa inquiries, rather surprised. Dragonic, still dining on his bowl of pudding, explains this part to the rider. When an Imagine loses their physical body on top of their sand form, they are left in a rather amnesia state, unable to remember who they are and require a body to maintain their very being, or else they would lose itself and poof. Natsumi gasps, now getting it. I get the gist now of this world's problem. Though why did I have the ticket to board the Den liner? Tsukasa then questions why he had the rider pass. Dragonic hums curious about that too, probably likely that Tsukasa had the most potential to be the Imagine's host body, at least in this world. Then we need to restore his memories and Natsumi comes to the conclusion until she hears screaming. The group looks outside to see people running for their lives from the mole-like Imagine again. It's the mole Imagine, Natsumi points out, in shock. Immediately the possessed Yusuke runs at the monster who sees him and digs back into the ground, letting the sign of burrowing on the ground as trail. Come back here, coward, he yells furiously, chasing after the monster. Natsumi panics, chasing after him with Tsukasa sighing, following behind with Dragonic and Absol. Sadly they lost him, so they had to count on Absol to sniff him out. He shouldn't be far gone, Tsukasa points out, certain that they will find him. Natsumi eyes him, curious why he thinks so, and asks him, "Why do you want to help him?" Tsukasa eyes her confused and just answers her uninterested. "Other than hurrying up to save this world, you told me to be a hero, remember?" Natsumi blushes, wrapping her arms on her back, saying with a smile, "I guess I did." Tsukasa cracks a smile. Dragonic smiles too. They look around the city without any direction, even though Tsukasa was certain they'll find that idiot. However, a flirting man approaches Natsumi, flirting with her, asking if she works as a model. Natsumi groans unease as Tsukasa takes photos, eagerly following this flirt while Dragonic pretends holding a lighting pole. The man expresses he's never met a city girl like her before. "Natsumi-kun, a city girl?" Tsukasa questions out loud, laughing humorously. "She's obviously a direct delivery from the country." Natsumi gives a glaring stare with large puffy cheeks. Tsukasa taunts by faking that he's scared, commenting with a smug smirk, covering his neck from the possible laughing point pressure. "How scary." The man then tries asking her out, but then the man gets bumped by a stranger. "Hey, watch it, I'm talking to this angel." The flirt man yells at the one who pumped into him. The man he was yelling at had brown hair and a face so clueless until he smiles, asking as he points at Natsumi, "You mean the little miss?" The flirt groans angrily, nodding. The man staggers and quickly apologizes, actually carefree. "Sorry, I didn't mean it." Natsumi sweat drops, nodding, not meaning for him to get involved. "I said butt out." The flirter yells madder at this man. The brown-headed blink, puzzled by his yelling, until he smiles and asks, reaching to his bag, "Oh, you want to try this?" They watch as he pulls out a red bright tomato. "A tomato?" Tsukasa mutters with a bizarre expression on his face. The young man smiles as he tells them, "I grew these the other day and want to know if they taste good." Natsumi giggles, having never seen such a bright, healthy tomato before. "I said beet." The flirter man begins complaining, only for the stranger to quickly shove the tomato into his mouth. He gasps, forced to eat it, struggling. "Taste good, right?" he asks him to his annoyance, struggling to eat it, and runs away. Natsumi sighs of relief, eyeing the young man, and thanks him with a smile. "Thank you." He smiles with a nod, adding with a sweat drop, "I could tell that guy was really weird." He then recalls something, reaching into his bag and pulls out a cucumber, offering it to Natsumi. "Want to try this cucumber? I grew it the other day too, still fresh." "Aw, thank you," Natsumi says, partly confused, but she's willing to try it. She eyes the cucumber and takes a bite on it, moaning happily. "Really good, right?" he asks her with a big smile. Natsumi nods, smiling. Tsukasa raises an eyebrow and asks, puzzled, "Are you some bizarre farmer?" The young man blinks, asking him, "Me? Nay, I just like growing veggies or other stuff to make amazing food with." "Then you're a farming chef?" Tsukasa questions him, with the stranger's reply being with a smile. "Yes." Tsukasa hums somewhat impressively. As the flirt guy comes back for round 2, just another yellow orb flies down, going inside Tsukasa. He gasps as sand comes out from the ends of his pant legs. The flirter tries to get Natsumi's love, only to get pulled back by a cane. "Oh, you're a human." Natsumi blinks by the new voice and widens her eyes in a freak-out manner. It was Tsukasa, but he's now wearing a white-blue colored tuxedo with a top hat and a pair of glasses. His eyes were blue and had a blue strain of hair. The gentleman Tsukasa separates the flirter away from Natsumi, excusing himself. "Pardon me, I thought for a moment there was some garbage stuck to her." The young man blinks, puzzled by the change, but does respond, pointing to the flirter. "Him, yes him." The possessed Tsukasa tells him. Natsumi slowly realizes what is happening, asking him, "Tsukasa-kun, don't tell me you." Just then, another yellow orb enters inside Tsukasa's body, changing him. That isn't what we're after. Posing in a sumo-like squat, Tsukasa announces as he is now wearing some kind of old hermit-like man. With his hair in a ponytail with a yellow strain of hair with yellow eyes. He poses his strength which freaks out the flirter who runs away, and then the possessed Tsukasa tosses a tissue paper to the scared man. Natsumi panics as Tsukasa has been possessed, a third time. However, another yellow orb goes inside Tsukasa's body and changes him once more. Once more posed, Tsukasa is wearing a break dancer-like outfit, dancing with his hair in a fuzzy wavy hair with a hat. He did have a purple wavy strain of hair and purple eyes while wearing black sunglasses. Yay, let's beat Decade. Mind if I do it? Can't hear you. The possessed Tsukasa declares, still break dancing, sounding very excited. Natsumi watches so uneased. Dragonic figures as much, declaring. 3 imagines now. The brown-haired young man blinks, eyeing the dragon, almost not freaked out by his appearance, and asks. Monsters, right? Yes. Dragonic answers with a grin. The young man grins back as he gasps and pulls out a large plum. The dragon eyes it and grins, accepting it. Yay, sure. The man smiles, handing it over as Dragonic takes large bites, chewing hungrily. Natsumi sees this, sweat dropping, reminding him as the possessed Tsukasa was being taken control by the 3 imagined back and forth. Dragonic devours the plum rather quickly and says, eyeing Absol. I got an idea. Absol barks, smiling, approaching the distracted possessed Tsukasa and grins, taking a huge bite on his right leg. Gah! All 3 imagine controlling Tsukasa scream in agony, but this also awakens the real Tsukasa. Tsukasa's eyes suddenly glow magenta as he speaks using his voice. Get out of me! With a burst of energy surrounding his body, the imagines were sent flying off his body. Tsukasa breathes heavily, wearing his proper clothes now. Absol barks, grinning. Tsukasa eyes her and pets her head. Good work, Mud, he just says to the mon, limping himself to Natsumi. As the farmer chef asks while pulling out fresh spinach. Tsukasa gazes at the vegetable and snatches it, taking a big bite on it, needing to nibble this pain in his leg and getting possessed twice. He chews on it and widens his eyes slightly, praising the stranger. Not bad. The young man nods, smiling. However, this isn't over as the 3 orbs become ghostly forms of their imagine selves. Hey, you can't kick us out. The purple imagine, Ryutaro's, calls out in a happy-going hipster-like nature. Not like I care, so not gentleman-like. The blue imagine, Urataro's, expresses in a gentleman-like manner. Do you mind? We'll show you. The yellow imagine, Kantaro's, declares firmly and proudly. And then you'll cry. The 3 fly towards Tsukasa, who quickly hands back the spinach into the young man, but by the mouth in his surprise. Hold still, farmer chef. Tsukasa tells him with a smug smirk as he grabs him by the shoulders and thrusts him in front of him. Whoa, he yells in shock as the 3 imagine enter his body instead. Natsumi's sweat drops at Tsukasa's plan, as did Absol, while Dragonic nods, finding it clever. Possessing this new body, Urataro's declares with a small smile, holding a rider pass. Now then, Henshin. He swipes the card on the now Den-O belt as it announces. Rod form. A blue logo-like symbol manifests as he transforms into the blue Kamen Rider Den-O rod form. Natsumi staggers, surprised and worried too. Oh yay, they're all Den-O by the way. Dragonic discloses to them, with Natsumi groaning more unease, begging for Tsukasa to stop this. Tsukasa-kun. Tsukasa is aware as he declares. All part of the plan, Natsumi-kun. He straps on the Deka driver as he pulls out the Decade card from the ride booker, tapping it twice on the edge with his middle finger. I best beat you 3 to get the information I need. Tsukasa proclaims cocky as he declares. Sliding the card into the belt. Henshin. He pushes the handles as the Deka driver announces, glowing. Kamen ride. Decade. Tsukasa, wiping his hands together, transforms into Decade as he comes charging. The 2 riders engage with Decade already delivering 2 strong punches back to back, sending rod form back. Brushing off the damage, Den-O pulls out the Den Gasher and changes it into its rod form, twirling it around before he calls out to Decade in a polite manner with a hand twirl. Boku ni Tsururit Miru. It is translated as, won't you let me reel you in? Decade comes at him, but now Den-O easily counters each strike and swings with Pierce Rod strikes, slamming Decade backwards. Getting up fast, Decade brushes off the damage he took. He needs to finish this fast. He pulls out the Ajito Rider card, declaring himself and its rider. Shoichi, Let our souls burn. He dunks the card into the Deka driver, glowing. Kamen ride. The Deka driver announces as he pushes one of its handles, transforming him into a Jito. Ajito. Den-O startles as Decade Ajito breathes, taking on a fighting pose, hand-taunting him. Den-O comes charging with thrusting rod strikes, but Decade Ajito reflects the strikes with ease before kicking Den-O back hard. Decade Ajito pulls out a form ride card, tapping on it twice on the sides before sliding it into the belt's card inserter. Pushing its handles. Form ride. The Deka driver announces as he changes into the blue armored Ajito with blue armor across the left arm and a shoulder pad too. He also wields a blue golden pole arm that extends on its sides, showing its blades. Ajito storm. Twirling the bladed pole, Decade Ajito comes charging and performs powerful swings from both weapon sides. Sparks fly out as Den-O is pushed back hard. He grunts as Kentaros takes control, speaking out. This will become troublesome. He swipes the rider pass as Den-O belt announces. Axe form. Den-O rod form changes into the yellow axe forms. Den-O poses firmly as he wields the Den Gasher in its axe form. Nakarud. He declares as he cracks his neck, warming up for battle. It is translated as, "You cried. Show me your strength." Den-O calls him out as he charges forward. He uses his superior strength and endurance to push back and tosses Decade Ajito back hard. Scoffing this, Decade pulls out a form ride card and tosses it into the Deka driver. Form ride. The Deka driver announces as Decade Ajito changes into red armor, now with the right arm covered in the red coloring and a sharper shoulder pad. He also wields a red golden sword with the crest of Ajito as its guard. Ajito flame. He swipes the backside of the blade of the sword before coming at Den-O, striking back with greater superior strength. Den-O gasps out with sparks flying out as Decade Ajito's sword ignites in flames, striking Den-O with greater force. It pushes axe form slightly until Decade swings across him again, pushing him harder. Damn, he starts complaining before Ryutaros takes control and swipes the rider pass. The Den-O belt responds glowing as it announces. Gun form. Den-O changes now into the purple gun form. Den-O chuckles, twirling the Den Gasher change into its gun form with a sharp bladed top. Kote wa Kitnai. Den-O taunts Decade Ajito as he fires quick energy barrages. It is translated as, "I can't hear you." Decade Ajito tries blocking or parrying the long-range attacks, but Den-O goes crazy, blasting with quicker successions while breakdancing, breaking through his defenses. The shots finally push Decade back, panting a bit as he pulls out another form ride card, dunking it into the Deka driver. Form ride. The Deka driver announces as he pushes one of its handles with his free hand. Now Decade Ajito changes as his chest armor reverts back to the golden armor, but both right arm and left arm takes on the other two forms, appearance as well as wields both weapons in their respective side hand. Ajito Trinity. Den-O staggers as Decade Ajito comes charging. He tries blasting him, but now Decade slashes through all the shots with both weapons with the greatest of ease before slashing him with both weapons. The attacks slam Den-O backwards with sparks flying out, though he manages to stand his ground. Cheap shot. Not like I care. Den-O yells out angrily before he's swapped back to rod form, breathing as he takes a jumping pose as he swipes the rider pass. Full charge. Decade Ajito scoffs, pulling out a final attack ride card and slides it into the Deka driver. Final attack ride. The Deka driver proclaims as Decade Ajito discards both weapons and breathes, taking on the Ajito preparing rider kick as the Ajito symbol manifests underneath him. He now leaps forward as did Den-O, both performing their rider kicks and clash. Ajito. Both kicks clash and try overpowering the other until Decade Ajito overpowers him and slams Den-O onto the ground so hard it undoes the transformation, and all three imagine fly out from the strange, groaning pretty stunned and in pain. Decade Ajito lands on the ground, wiping both his hands as he taunts the monsters. "You all done? We're good." All three utter out, confirming they can't beat this guy. Natsumi sighs as she runs up to the young man's aid. "You okay?" Natsumi asks the stranger, who smiles, confirming he's okay. He gets back up, eyeing Decade Ajito and smiles, praising him. "Nice one, Tsukasa-san." Natsumi giggles a bit at how nice this guy is to wait. Even Decade notices he called him by his real name. Sure, Natsumi called him that plenty, and yet it was like he knew him. However, before he could ask him anything else, another voice interrupts, annoyed. "Decade, you should already submit and die." Decade Ajito turns and it was Narutaki, not all surprised it was him. Natsumi groans, really not liking this bad timing. Just the best of timings, huh? Decade questions, not looking forward to this. Natsumi watches with Dragonic and Absol protecting her as Decade with the Taros and the vegetable man stare down at Narutaki. Decade chuckles, telling Narutaki off. I don't have time to deal with you, Narutaki. Then I'll make things brief. Narutaki proclaims ominous as an aurora curtain flies and consumes him, but in his place leaves a large group of Imagines led by Kamen Rider Yuki in platform, breathing heavily as he holds up a rider pass and slides it through the center of the belt. Skull form. The belt announces, transforming the platform into the more skeleton skull form. Wielding his sinister sword weapon. Not this scary guy again. Ryutaros complains loudly, really hating this guy, at all. He's so hard to even put down. Decade Ajito walks in front, protecting the Taros since he still needs information about the Red One. Yuki's skull form comes at Decade with a murderous intention. Decade Ajito scoffs, manifesting both weapons. He comes charging at Yuki as they cross blades, sparks flying out from their weapons. Decade tries finishing this fast, but Yuki evades his swings so easily before suddenly striking back harder. Decade Ajito is pushed back, panting, as the other Imagines strike him too, slamming him onto a wall. Decade falls but lands on both his feet, panting as these guys were more than annoying. I'll make things brief then too. Decade Ajito declares, pulling out a super form ride card and tosses it upward before it lands perfectly into the card inserter of the Decadriver, immediately pushing its handles forward. Super form ride. The Decadriver announces as Decade Ajito erupts in flames, transforming into its burning form. Ajito burning. Decade Ajito breathes deeply as his body is surrounded by intense flames. The Imagines come at him, but Decade Ajito only strikes him with precise blows, destroying the monsters in fiery explosions. More comes at him as Decade Ajito manifests the double-bladed burning weapon, slashing them with half as they explode. Full charge. The belt of Yuki announces as his sword erupts in dark energy and swings his sword, firing a destructive energy slash. Decade Ajito quickly swings the double-bladed weapon upon the energy slash and slashes it in half. This stuns Yuki as Decade Ajito pulls out the final attack ride card. Finisher, he declares, dunking it into the belt and pushes its handles. Final attack ride. The Decadriver announces as Decade Ajito breathes deeply, flames erupting on his chest plate and his right fist. Yuki comes charging to finish this, but as it gets to range, Decade Ajito slams its flame punch across its chest and connects, releasing a devastating fiery explosion. Ajito. Everyone watches as Yuki screams and is destroyed before their eyes. The Taros hum, slightly impressed with the young man smiling amazed. Awesome, he can use Ajito's powers pretty well. Dragonic nods in agreement with Natsumi, puzzled. How does he know about Ajito if he comes from this world? Unless. Decade Ajito wipes his hands together of victory until he's then suddenly slashed. This shocks everyone as sparks fly out as the rider, who turns around to see it was Kamen Rider Go, chuckling menacingly. He proceeds to trash a stunned Decade Ajito with his sharp-edged blade before releasing an electrical whip from it, striking him multiple times. Decade Ajito yells out to transforming as Tsukasa is tossed onto the ground, grunting in pain. Tsukasa-kun. Natsumi shouts, running to his aid, trying to pull him up as Tsukasa grunts angrily, actually complaining. You gotta be kidding me. Go comes at Tsukasa, but Absol intercepts with Night Slash. He brushes off the attack with ease, but then the Taros attack him or try until they are slashed by the electrical whip, sending them flying back. They groan as Go goes after them until he's shot, pushed back. It was Tsukasa, using the Ride Booker's gun form, twirling it before attaching it back to his waist side. Why are you trying to help us? Yuritaros questions this human, fully aware what he is and what he's doing. Tsukasa scoffs, standing back up. He shrugs his shoulders and exclaims uncaringly. Beats me, I just want to help that red idiot. This surprises the Imagines, with Kentaros asking him. You mean the crier, Momotaros? Tsukasa raises an eyebrow facing them and nods. We're trying to help our hot-headed buddy too. Well, our dumb, hot-head buddy. Ryutaros explains himself, missing his complaining, and drawing ridiculous pictures of an angry, cute, Momo like a peach. They lost him along the den liner when an alligator-like Imagine got in when traveling to this world, and it did damage, literally, sending Momotaros out of the train and losing his physical form. So that's his name. Tsukasa mutters out now, truly getting the gist of helping that idiot. I now know what to do. But we still have to deal with him. Natsumi points out as Go walks up to them until the young man gets in his way, literally kicking him back. I can handle them, Tsukasa-san, you go and help the friendly monster. He tells Tsukasa, who gazes at him, more than confident who he is. Natsumi is puzzled, asking the stranger, "Who are you?" The young man startles and laughs nervously, forgetting to introduce himself. "Oh yay, I'm Shoichi Sugami, sort of. Nice to meet you, Tsukasa-san, Natsumi-chan." He greets them both with Natsumi surprised by his first name. Tsukasa smirks, figuring as much. "Oh don't worry, I got this." Shoichi assures them as he faces Go. He breathes as he takes on a fighting pose as the Ajido belt manifests around his waist. "Henshin," he shouts, slamming both his hands on both sides of his waist, transforming him instantly into Kamen Rider Ajido. Go startles as Ajido takes on a fighting pose as if he'll be his opponent. "Should have figure by how you still stick around." Tsukasa comments by his attitude, though he's still uncertain about one thing, demanding him. "You guys want to help me but still plan to kill me. Why?" Ajido turns his head to his side to somewhat see Tsukasa and tells him honestly, "I don't know myself, but you're trying to help and I can't deny that, right?" Tsukasa just smirks. At the least it was a good enough response. Ajido nods as he comes charging at Go, the two riders engaging. Go swings around his whip as Ajido rolls or leaps away from the whip, delivering a spinning kick that pushes the evil rider back. Ajido then transforms into Trinity form as he swings both weapons across the evil rider, slashing him as sparks fly out. Ajido then slams and pushes Go backwards, distancing their fight elsewhere. Tsukasa watches, able to tell he has this at the most part. Seeing his chance now, Tsukasa eyes the Imagines and promises them in his own smuggish nature, "I'll bring back Momotaro's, but don't get in my way." The Taros eye each other and nod, deciding to trust him. Tsukasa nods, eyeing Absol and orders her, "Mutt, led us to Yusuke's scent." Absol nods, barking. She takes a deep sniff from her snout and catches a scent as she runs off. Tsukasa, Natsumi and Dragonic follow them on to the other side of the city. The group soon arrives as Absol growls towards the alligator Imagine with the mole Imagine, engaging Den-O with ease, even smacking him so hard into a portal into the past. "So this is you've doing?" Tsukasa calls out to the alligator Imagine. The monster panics, trying to run, but Tsukasa blasts him in the back with his Ride-Booker gun form. The bullets strike its back as it falls rolling on the ground. Twirling the gun, Tsukasa now asks the monster, "And where are you going?" The alligator Imagine starts getting up. It then begins laughing as he forms some kind of portal and leaps inside of it, vanishing. The mole Imagine then starts laughing too, to Tsukasa's annoyance. "You'll never find that bastard. He's trapped in the past and you'll never catch up to me." The mole Imagine taunts them evilly as he time travels too, to fight and kill Den-O. Tsukasa scoffs while Absol barks angrily. "Coward much. So what now?" Tsukasa begins to ask Dragonic on their next move as he turns to face him, and there he raises an eyebrow. The dragon was not with them. "Dragonic," Natsumi calls out, looking around but not seeing the purple dragon. Absol blinks, not even sensing him leaving. They look around but nothing. Where did he? Just then the area around them vibrates violently. Natsumi panics as she grabs tightly on Tsukasa. There a rip through reality opens up and the alligator Imagine is tossed through it. The three blink, taken back as Dragonic hops out the portal. He smirks, tapping it with his sharp index-clawed finger, and the portal shuts itself closed. "I can time travel too," Dragonic proclaims with a smirk. Tsukasa hums, commentating, "Handy." The alligator Imagine panics, fearing as it tries to run for it, but Dragonic gazes with an icy look at the cowardly monster, opening up its fangs. Dragonon burst. The dragon roars, unleashing a burst of intense purple flames like mouth blast, consuming the monster entirely. The blast vaporizes and destroys the Imagine into nothing. Natsumi sweat drops, heavily, that sometimes she thinks the dragon is scarier and more powerful than the monsters they fight. It's kinda a good thing he's on their side, though she is curious why Dragonic always has Tsukasa fight them instead. It's like he's a mentor to Tsukasa, to be honest. Tsukasa, however, was more concerned about the Imagine in Yusuke, that now they can't reach them. He sighs, shrugging his shoulders, and states uncaring, "Well, we'll never be able to reach where that Imagine went or save Yusuke." "Oh well." Natsumi sweat drops heavily while Absol gazes at him too, stunned. "Not really." The three turn to Dragonic, literally sitting on his tail, stretching up like a chair. The dragon eyes Tsukasa and reveals it to the young man. Tsukasa-kun, you can use the Aurora curtains to take you to any world, but you can also travel through time too. Tsukasa is actually left speechless. He could do that. How the hell does Dragonic know he can do that? Dragonic notices his puzzled expression and confirms it to him, smirking. Time and dimensions are in a way the same thing, it just depends how you can control them. Tsukasa crosses his arms and nods, getting the gist of it. Natsumi eyes him and agrees. They have to save Yusuke and this might be their only way. Let's go then, Tsukasa-kun. Natsumi encourages him, trusting him. Tsukasa smirks, nodding. He looks forward and focuses as an aurora curtain manifests before them. Focus on your power where the Imagine had went and let your connection with Kuga and even Den-O guides you. Dragonic instructs him as Tsukasa nods. He focuses more as the curtain glows and then flies towards them, swallowing them in, and then they find themselves on the same spot. Natsumi blinks, looking around, muttering out, everything looks, until she spots that the building that they were next to was gone, as if it was never built there. Never mind, we're in the past. Natsumi gasps out loudly, not believing they time traveled. Tsukasa hums, rather impressed, smirking as he could do a lot of things, but first thing first. Yes, we are. Stay behind, Natsumi-kun. Tsukasa instructs Natsumi, who nods. He eyes Absol and orders her. Mutt, watch her. Absol nods. Tsukasa straps on the decadriver as he runs off with Dragonic flying right behind him. They went inside an underground parking lot to see Den-O getting beaten by the Imagine using his own strength. Just in the nick of time. Dragonic announces with a smirk as Tsukasa taps the Decade card and shouts, sliding the card into his belt. Henshin. He pushes the handles of the belt as the decadriver announces, glowing. Kamen ride. Decade. The Imagine comes at Den-O again with its sword, swinging at him, until Decade intercepts with his ride Booker's sword form and saves Den-O's defeated position. What are you doing? Decade calls out to the seemingly beaten Den-O, taunting him to keep fighting. If a child wants something, he's got to persevere. Den-O groans, not sure he can't do anything like this the way he is. If you want to become you again, imagine it yourself. Decade encourages him. This shocked Den-O, who gets up and protests, struggling to remember anything. But I can't imagine. I needed someone, but I can't alone. Decade easily disposes of the sword in the Imagine's possession and slashes him back, turning to tell the Lost Rider. You can. At first, you depended on others' imaginations, but you have your own too. The Imagine breathes, coming at the two. Kamen ride. The DN driver announces as manifesting her smart brains as Riot Troopers. Riot Troopers. The large group of Riot Troopers suddenly surrounds and starts attacking the mole Imagine, overwhelming it with odds, taking the fight outside. Decade follows and spots DN leaning on a pillar. I found it weird what or where you went off to, Kato. Decade taunts his so-called rival with DN chuckling and responds carefree. Me, I just tried to get that lost Imagine to become the ultimate treasure. You have a twisted sense of compassion. Dragonic says, sweat dropping. DN snickers as he tells Den-O he has no imagination and he's better off becoming part of his collection. This gets to the Imagine possessing Yasaka, however. He's no mere Imagine. He's, Decade begins to protest to Den-O's surprise. This guy thinks he must be cool, or awesome, or a hero, or an idiot. Decade proclaims firmly to Den-O's dismay, uttering out angrily, what was that, asshole? Well, he's not far from the truth. Dragonic points out, smirking. Decade eyes Den-O and states, but you have a soft spot. Enough to care for the body of the person you're possessing. He gasps, indeed, recalling trying to tend the wounds of the body he's possessed when that D and guy tries to capture him into becoming his treasure crap. Even without a physical form, he properly exists. Decade calls out to D and showing this Imagine as more valuable than any treasure. He then shoves his hand over his shoulder. Anyway, I know him. Decade states, facing Den-O, and calls the Imagine his true name. Momotaro's. Den-O startles as if that name has meaning in his very core, like a memory of someone weak but pretty cool. Gave him that name. On cue of remembering himself, the ride Booker shoots out 4 cards that Decade catches, becoming the Den-O cards. Decade eyes them and taps on the final form ride card and thrusts them and taps on the final form ride card and thrusts it into his belt. Final form ride. The decadriver announces as he pushes the handles and activates its power. Den-O Momotaro's, this might tickle. Decade warns him. Den-O did not follow unease as Decade claps him forward. Come on. What? Den-O yells until Decade taps his back. Den-O starts glowing as the Den-O head just shoves in the body. Yusuke is then shot outward off the body, screaming as Den-O begins to change, literally becoming the Imagine he is based on, Momotaro's. Or Sanjou. The red, peach, Imagine declares taking on his signature pose as if he was acting like a giant. Decade is silent while Dragonic face palms shaking his head slowly. The Imagine squeezes his hands and chuckles excitedly, regaining his memories, himself, and he's the best there is. He, I'm me again. Better than ever. Man Ryotaro must be hopeless without. Momotaro's begins praising himself until he gasps recalling the name of his human partner, of those other idiots in his home the Den liner. Dragonic smirks with Decade asking him in a taunt. I see you. Regain yourself being Momotaro scoffs at him and says uncaring. I guess so. The monster eyes the rider, pretty sure he should thank him but didn't feel like it plus it wouldn't be cool. He does ask him, curious. Thanks, I guess. What's your name? Just a passing through common rider, but you don't need to remember me. Decade simply tells him though advises him to forget. Momotaro scoffs, stating, then I won't ask. Momotaro turns gazing at the mole Imagine, chuckling as he shouts. Let's go, I'm itching to beat you down. He comes at the opposing monster and starts delivering the beat down. D-End shakes his head, just wanting his treasure but Tsukasa always has to get in his way. TCH, you got in my way again Tsukasa-san. D-End calls out, to the magenta rider who chuckles and reminds him. When wasn't I? D-End just chuckles walking away. Decade watches the rider vanish, certain he turns invisible or teleported. Respect Dragonic questions surprised the thief let it go, showing some kind of good nature, in his way. Decade didn't respond, turning to Yusuke groaning, really confused where the heck he was and what had happened. Yusuke, you done being lazy? Decade calls out to him, needing his help. Yusuke is still so bizarre what just happened but seeing Momotaro's now smacking down on the Imagine, he knew. What? I think I understand the situation. Yusuke states getting up, striking a battle pose and shouts as his arkle belt manifests around his waist. Henshin. He comes charging transforming into Kuga and takes a leap as a rider kick, hitting Momotaro's instead by the side neck literally cracking it backwards. Decade just watches shaking his head with Dragonic muttering out as he face palms himself. Yasaka, you stupid idiot. What the hell was that for, bastard? Momotaro's yells furiously, tossing Kuga back as he suddenly gasps in agony by his broken bent neck. Ah my neck, my neck. Decade sighs walking up behind his back and literally pushes the head back, fixing the Imagine's neck who still wails in agony. Better? Decade asks with the Taros just holding a shaken thumb up. Decade chuckles as he pulls out another final form ride card, declaring. Let's settle this here. He dunks the card into his belt and pushes its handles. Final form ride. The Deka driver announces as Decade gets on Kuga's back and warns him. Hold still Yusuke. This might tickle again. Oh, not again. Kuga utters not going to like this part. As Decade taps his back. Kuga gasps as he transforms into a giant beetle-like robot. Kuga Gouram. The Imagine watches as the transformed Kuga flies at the monster, smacking it with great speed and force. Hey, I can finish this off. Momotaro's complains, annoyed, wanting to be the one to beat that monster. Decade hums and agrees pulling out a final attack ride card. Good point. He states sliding the card into his belt and pushing its handles forward. Final attack ride. The Deka driver announces as Momotaro's gains a whip-like weapon. Den-O. He chuckles as he swings it and thrusts it upward, attaching its sharp end right into the transformed Kuga Gorum into its butt with Yusuke feeling it in agony. Gah! Momotaro starts twirling around rapidly as he slams downward towards the Imagine, slamming the caught Kuga Gorum onto him while he shouts. My finisher attack. Decade version. The attack hits and explodes, destroying the mole Imagine completely while Kuga is in the ground, grunting in agony. Oh ouch! Momotaro's chuckles, wiping his hands like Decade would, declaring proudly. That takes care of that. Decade and Dragonic both sigh, good enough. Using the Aurora Curtain, Tsukasa and group time travel back to the present as they went where the other Taros were waiting. Yo, look who's arrived. Me, Momotaro's calls out, doing his pose to be dramatic. The three run up to their comrade and immediately mock him. Took you long to come back, crier. Kentaros tells him, off wondering how long it would have taken while Yuritaros adds with his arms crossed in a gentleman-like style. You're getting softer, Captain. And lamer too. Not like I care. Ryutaro's adds a sense of humor while breaking dancing. This annoys Momotaro's furiously as he shouts, charging at the three. You damn idiots. The other three dodge his attacks as Momotaro's chases them around a circle. Nearly the whole group watching this sweat drops except Dragonic, who says with a grin. They seem happy being together. Tsukasa, silent, smirks while taking a photo of them together. The photo pops out showing the four idiots together. He eyes the dragon and suggests, next world then. Dragonic smirks, nodding. Natsumi eyes the four imagines still chasing around as she asks, you think they'll be fine alone? Just then the sky rips through and something comes out, sucking up the four imagines inside of it. They look up and widen their eyes. It was a long white, black bullet train with red lining and the head of the train resembling Den-O's helmet. The group is silent except Dragonic and Tsukasa, who take a photo of the flying train. The train flies off, creating a portal, vanishing inside like it never existed. Was that a flying train? Yusuke finally utters out loudly. Tsukasa smirks at this and proclaims from Yusuke's early assumption on the train. Guess you were right about the time machine part, huh? Yusuke groans, dragging himself back in the studio, still feeling the massive pain in his butt. Tsukasa smirks as he and Natsumi join him inside. Absol sighs. Walking back in with Dragonic, alone, hums rather sad. Only 2 worlds remain, and then, to stop the destruction of the Rider worlds. End of part 10. Like and subscribe.